Falcon and Winter Soldier Episode 4, The Whole World is Watching. As you can see in the background, it's not Captain America today. Had a crappy situation with that helmet that you see right there. It's a broken Star Wars helmet that cost me $100 to be broken. So I was just super pissed, and I was like, I don't even have the mental energy to just bother cleaning up. And I'm just like, I'm just going to do the review because I'm already late on it, and I just don't want to deal with the helmet right now. I was very excited for that, and it cost me $100. And now I have to pay to return it because I already got rid of the box. Life. Speaking of broken things, Broken Captain America. Loved the episode. It was effing amazing. It's my favorite episode for sure. Like, the ending was absolutely amazing. The beginning, actually, literally the beginning and the ending to this episode, I think are the best. As far as the series is concerned, it's the best beginning that we've had so far. Like, I love the opening with Bucky, and it's in a sense that is the day the Winter Soldier died. And I thought that was such a great moment where, they have, I believe Ao is her name. She's going through and she's, repeating the words, and he's like, he's freaking out. He's like, what if something happens? Like, it's not, he's worried still because, of course, this was the first time it's ever been successful. So before that, he's like, I'm still messed up. If you say that, I'm going to snap and I'm going to go into a, psycho rage and try to hurt you. So he's like, it's not going to work. Like, and he was scared. And so as she's, reading the words, we get all the flashes of everything he's done throughout, the MCU. We have him, of course, as the Winter Soldier. And I feel like it would have been cool to see a little bit more of him as Bucky, but I understand why they didn't do that. But I think it would have been cool to have it where all of the images in the beginning of it were him as the Winter Soldier. Like, the first thing they show is him, really the last time we saw the words get used on him, and he started flipping out, and he was trying to, break out of the cage and stuff. And was it Civil War? Yeah, in Civil War. So I thought that was cool. We show all the images of that, and then we see a lot of him as the Winter Soldier. I would have loved it if they showed it as it got closer and closer. We started to see more of him as Bucky, and then it's like, oh, as the words keep going through, like, he's crying and stuff like that. But you can clearly tell, like, he's fighting through it, and that's why the tears are coming, because he's not going into a rage. So I thought it would have been a little cool if they show, like, a couple of scenes, like, as we went through the words. Maybe even if it was literally, like, just in between the first and the last word, we start to see images of just Bucky. Like, they show a couple more images of him, from the first Captain America movie, and him, fighting with Steve and stuff. I think that would have been really cool, but it was still a great scene either way, where it was just all the Winter Soldier stuff and him just dealing with that, which, once again, it makes perfect sense because that is the day the Winter Soldier died. So it makes sense to only show the Winter Soldier, his Winter Soldier moments, if you will. But I love that scene. And, it's like, she says, like, you're free, and he's just crying, and he's just like, he's happy and he's crying because it's like, man, I'm Bucky Barnes again. I'm no longer the Winter Soldier. Like, that's not even a part of me, even though that's in the show, for sure. Like, they've clearly shown that there's some elements of that where it's like, he can still get into, fight mode. But that was the first time he truly felt free. That was, like I said, the day the Winter Soldier died. So, amazing opening to the episode. And then the end of this, some might say it was the day Captain America died. Depending on how you look at it. Obviously, it'll be fixed. We know, obviously we know that, we're going to transition from Falcon into him becoming Captain America. So it's like, Sam's going to be Captain America. It'll be fine. But as of now, Captain America's pretty dead. Like, that image is just like, he stood up and there's blood on the shield and everything. It's like, well, that's not good. The whole world's watching, all on Instagram, IG Live, we got you. So that was interesting. That was a heck of an ending. Like, the whole episode was really entertaining. And it was definitely a fun episode just based on the content of it, because it felt like a long episode, but in the best way. Like, I honestly felt like this episode was over an hour long as I was watching it. And I think I was probably at, like, the halfway point, or, just, 20 minutes, and then even again at 30 minutes. It was just like, man, I feel like so much happened in these short spans of time that I just kept thinking, like, how long is this episode? But it was a normal episode. It was 40 minutes, just like the others. So, or, 42 or 43. And I think that kind of shows how good this episode really was, because even though there was a lot of talking, like, they have moments of the characters waiting around, of course, when, US Agent comes along, and it's like, him and his buddies like, hey, we found you guys, like, what the F, like, why'd you break out Zemo? And so they have, their moments. Of course, the stuff in the beginning of the episode is like, we're probably going to be dealing with some Wakandan soldiers coming up pretty soon. We got like 8 hours for that. So we got to be careful about that. Then US Agent comes out. I've always called him that. So, and we'll see what happens. I mean, I think they're going to keep him. I don't think he's going to die. They killed Lamar, but I think they're going to keep him on as a villain, and he's going to officially become US Agent. And a lot of people have been throwing out this whole Thunderbolts thing. It's starting to make a lot of sense. Like, there's some stuff that's happened where I'm like, that does make sense. And of course, Thunderbolt Ross is supposed to be in Black Widow. Like, everyone talked about that. Like, oh, what does that mean? Is he gonna do some stuff there? I didn't want to say it because they might actually hint at it. But there's a very specific thing, and not even involving the Thunderbolt stuff, that would certainly be amazing. I don't know if they're gonna do it. Honestly, I don't even think they're gonna do it. But if they do, that'll be one of the coolest things ever. So we'll see what happens. But it's just interesting. It's like they might be leading towards some of this stuff with the Thunderbolt. So we'll see what happens there. But it was crazy. Just going through. All right, we all knew, right? Like, John Walker, it was like he's going to somehow get the serum. He's going to turn evil. I think that was the easiest thing to theorize. It was just, when was it going to happen? And even with this episode, I didn't think it was going to happen. I was like, oh, he got the serum. We had 2 more episodes to go. And the way that I thought they would do it is kind of how they've been doing it, without him having the abilities, or without him getting the serum. Was they've kind of built it up. He's obviously on edge. He can't really handle it. I mentioned before, once someone has to run up on you, like, do you know who I am? It's like, you're nobody. Once you have to yell that in somebody's face, you've lost all power. Like, that's what that means. When you scream that at someone, that means you were the man with no power. So he was already gone. Like, once that line came out, I was like, he already fell off the cliff. It's over for him. This guy has nothing anymore. And so I thought it was going to be gradual. I was like, okay, he got the serum. We'll see a couple other moments, which they showed. The Dora Milaje whooped his butt. He specifically says after he's beaten down, like, they weren't even super soldiers. And it was like, okay, he's getting closer. He'll probably end up taking it pretty soon. He has a conversation with his buddy, which I think at that point he'd already taken it. If I'm being totally honest, I think he took it after he lost to the Dora Milaje. But either way, it's the same thing. Like, he probably was still waiting to take it and was just like, still contemplating it, and that may have been the final decision. Even though he lost, that fight, it was still that final moment with his buddy, like, how would you feel if you took it? Or, if you had the chance, would you take it? And, like, what about me? And he had to kind of get that confirmation from his friend, like, I don't know if I'm supposed to do this, or, if I should do this. And his buddy's like, you got all these medals, but the things we did to get those medals weren't exactly great. And then it's just like, yeah, but we could have saved so many lives. Like, we did crappy things for the right reasons, though. And it's like, yeah, we could have saved more people with the serum. And so, of course, he takes it. And as soon as he threw that shield, I was like, oh, there it is. And then I saw the episode a second time, and I was like, I think the scene when he actually burst through the door was technically the first real indication. But at the same, I mean, clearly he had already taken it, but the way the door, like, blows up, like, all the glass blows open, I was like, huh. When I watched it the second time, I was like, I think that was the first clue. And then right after that, he does the hearing thing, which at the time I was like, oh, that's just a normal thing, because technically it was super quiet, so he was just focusing. And I was like, anyone can do that, really. Like, I didn't think of that as a super soldier thing. But they were probably super far away when you really think about it, because they literally show, like, a long stretch of the hallway, and then we don't technically see which direction he goes in, but I'm like, huh. When I look at it back, I'm like, maybe that was a super soldier thing. And clearly he'd already taken it. But I was like, oh, I didn't notice that. For me, it was when he threw the shield in, and I was like, that's super soldier. Because I'm like, even if he threw it super hard, it wouldn't have blown through the wall. Like, it has nothing to do with the shield being vibranium. That's pure strength. And he threw it through there, and I was like, oh, that's definitely it. But seeing it on, the second viewing, I was like, huh. The way they had the door just, like, explode open, like, all the glass blew off, which we saw him kick a door open earlier before the Dora Milaje showed up, which is a great scene, by the way, because, for one, it was funny. He was getting beat up, and it's like, looking good, John. And then, also, they hit Bucky with, like, the secret technique, and it was like, just in case, like, we know we helped you and all that stuff, and you are cured, but just in case, let me just, put the code in, and the whole arm just drops off, and he's just like, oh, dang, look at that. I didn't know that. So that was interesting. Zemo escapes. What a surprise. I was just waiting. Like, every episode, I'd been waiting for this dude to finally make his move. And it was like, oh, there it is. It was when everyone else was fighting. Of all the things that he could have done, all the times he could have escaped, it ended up being all the heroes fighting each other, which it's almost ironic, I think. So it's like, oh, that's when he made his escape. When all the good guys, were technically fighting against each other, that's when Zemo ends up making his grand escape. I was like, there's something in there. And like I said, like, it's almost ironic, I think. But I like that scene and the way they handled it. Like I said, him kicking that door open, and then when they show it again when he charges with the shield. And like I said, at first it was just like, oh, well, he ran at it and he hit the door with the shield, so all of the energy from him hitting the door would dissipate through the shield. And it was like, it technically makes a bunch of sense because that's how the shield works. And then it was just like, Nah, that was super soldier. The glass just like blew off. If the door exploded like all the way off, it would have made sense. But he did charge through the whole door, and then he did the super hearing thing. And once he, like I said, he threw the shield into the wall. I was like, oh, that's it. And also, they had a very funny moment where, like, it was obvious to me, like he threw the shield into the wall. As he was walking to pick it up, he was having like some crackhead moments. He was literally tweaking. Like he was like, who? Like he jumped and stuff before he grabbed the shells. Like this dude is literally tweaking off this super soldier serum. Like he's too amped right now. And so of course they go through. Lamar's been captured. He gets knocked out. He does his little knife escape thing. Bucky shows up with Sam, of course. And so they have their grand fight. I'm skipping over a lot of stuff, obviously, but there are a lot of minor moments in this. I mean, they have the conversation, which honestly, I like the conversation, but I hated that moment in the episode, mostly because it did the exact thing every show ever always does. It's always, give me 10 minutes, give me some time to talk to the person, and whoever goes in to do the nicer version of the thing is always super successful. It's all, they may not have instantly stopped the whole thing, but it's always like, yeah, I see where you're coming from. And even the villain's like, man, maybe I am not that great, and maybe I'm a little rough in these situations. It's always the same thing. They always make it work, and then the other person comes in and is like, oh, so you were betraying me. It's like, no, that's not it. And then it's chaos. I'm like, I hate seeing that, because I'm like, I knew it was going to happen, because that's what everyone writes. It's always like, just give me some time and let me talk. And it's like, all right, I'll give you your time. I changed my mind. And then, of course, the main villain is like, oh, so you were tricking me this whole time. I was like, no, I wasn't. And it's always the same thing. It's always, they're about to have a resolution, and then someone else comes in and then stops it. And then it basically just resets it back to where it always was, except there's an action sequence now. And so it was like, it's not that it was insignificant, because of course that does lead to Zemo finding all the serum and destroying them, except for the one that John actually gets. So it's not that it's irrelevant. It's just that I hate when they do that, because I'm like, that trope happens so much where it's like they almost had a moment. It was like, oh, they were about to calm down because everyone's on the left. It's like, oh, they're bringing it down. They're having these conversations. They're talking about ideals. They're agreeing with each other even. And then the hyped up person comes in, or whatever action set piece happens, and it's like, boom. And then it's like, oh, and then it all goes back to chaos again. I'm like, I just hate when it happens in that specific way, because it's just like, I sometimes I just wish people would just let a conversation go out, or just don't let the conversation start. Like, because it's just always that middle ground where it's like, oh, they're getting somewhere. Oh, they didn't get anywhere. Like, I hate seeing that, because it happens all the time in action stuff where they just have that slow moment where people start to bond, and then the third party comes in and they think they're being betrayed. And it's just like, I hate seeing that, and if you think about it, it happens all the time. It's always like that. So I was just like, I like the talk. It was definitely good, but I was just like, I hate when that happens, and I was just annoyed seeing it again. But like I said, it's not that it was insignificant. I just, whatever. And plus, it's nothing compared to the ending. The ending is really the important part. That's really why I was skipping through. But we have Sam, we have Bucky. They go through. Bucky ends up fighting one of the super soldiers, and that's one of the things I didn't notice until this episode. I like the fact that they show, even though these are a bunch of super soldiers, they still suck. It does not matter. Like, they still get knocked down, even by Sam himself. Like when they fought against Carly, when they first find out that John was there, she's about to take off because they're like, oh crap, we gotta protect him and figure all this stuff out. So Bucky jumps down and she like dives into his stomach, and then Sam comes down and he's like, I'm just gonna fight you. Like, he's just a normal dude, and he just does like a spin kick and kicks her into a wall. And I was like, oh, like he's just a normal guy. Like, he's cool. Like, he's fighting even at the end of the episode. It's fine. Like, his skills beat their strength. And then, of course, with Bucky, like, he's literally, like, after Captain America, it's like, it's him. At this point, at least. It's the super soldier. So he destroyed them, because I'm like, these are still just random people. It's like, if you have an MMA fighter with super strength versus a regular dude who ends up getting super strength, the guy who knows martial arts is gonna beat you. It doesn't matter, because once again, you're still on the same ground. Like, they basically just make it a normal fight. They just happen to be able to get some hits in, because if he takes a super punch, it still feels like a super punch. But it's just like, okay, the dude had him in a chokehold for like a half a second. He's like, okay, let me just push off the wall, and then he just kicks the dude through a brick wall. And it's like, yeah, they have super strength, but they were caught off guard in that first fight when they're on the truck, and plus they were surrounded. It was like 2-on-1 for both of them until U.S. Agent and his buddy came in, Patriot or Battlestar. So it was like, yeah, in that fight, of course they lost, but 1-on-1, Bucky wins all the time, and that's what happened. And he just kicked that dude through the wall. And it was like, yeah, they can't stand up against them. And then when they even went up against U.S. Agent, when he had the super soldier serum, he was beating all of them because it was like, oh, because this dude knows how to effing fight. Before, it's like three effing people with super strength, and he was getting his butt kicked, and he got punched off a truck, and then it's like, well, now I have all of these abilities. He was even throwing the shield better because of all the perception stuff that the serum enhances your body with. So he was able to, just do like all the epic shield throws and stuff like that, which we'd seen before in like the second episode when they show like his little training thing where he throws the shield super far and it like bounces back to him, which even that, they talk about how his body is at like peak physical form. He's almost in like a Punisher thing where like Punisher is not technically superhuman, but he has some like more super human sort of capabilities, like his tolerance for pain and weird, just random weird stuff where it's like they're like peak physical human. Like that's kind of where he was, because no human being should be able to throw that shield and have like that much amazing accuracy at the distance he was at. Like they showed in that second episode, I was like, that in itself is almost superhuman, because he threw his shield with like perfect accuracy from a huge distance, and like he had it bounce off the targets and it came back to him. Like he knew how to do it already, and I was like, that in itself is almost superhuman. And then when he was actually a super soldier, he was throwing that junk and was hitting like two people at once. I was like, oh, they're super screwed. Like this dude knows how to fight, and now he's on the same level. Like they could hit him with a couple punches before, and now it's really even, and he wiped the floor with them. Like still 2-on-1. Like he had to deal with some stuff. Sam had to deal with some stuff. Great moments from him as well, like him using the thrusters to like kind of blind the woman and sort of burn her before doing a spin kick. All that stuff, I thought it was really good. A lot of knives, they do reference that, which I thought was pretty funny. They had a cool moment where Bucky kind of went into some knife play again, because I'll never forget the Winter Soldier scene where he like flips the knife and catches it and stuff. Like that's just so cool. And so they had that where he throws it and he throws it down towards their face. But it was all good. Everything was super well. I was like, oh, this is really cool. And I knew Lamar was trending. I saw that he was trending because I waited to watch the episode. And so I was like, honestly, I forgot that was his name, so I didn't even think about it before. I was like, oh, something big happened, because it was trending like crazy. And so I was just like, let me stay away from that. I don't want to remember who is who, and I'll just watch. And so then episodes coming along. They get their final fight scene. Even with his super strength, he was outnumbered. He gets grabbed. Carly's about to run in with the knife, about to stab him. And his buddy comes in, tackles her down, knocks the knife out of her hand, and she went full villain mode. She went full supremacist, if you will. And she was just pissed and was like, oh, and just punched him. One solid punch, flew across the room, hit the pillar, dead. Game over. Unless he comes back in the next episode, which would be the most insane twist ever, where he thought, we all thought he died, and then he actually was just like knocked out. I'm pretty sure he's dead though, because he was shaking his face. He like they don't really like emphasize it, but he did have his finger on his neck to like check his pulse. So I'm pretty sure he's like dead. But it would be insane if he wasn't. And then he came back and was like, I was just injured really bad. Like, you murdered that guy. I was like, I thought you died. I doubt that'll happen. I think he's just dead. But he dies, and it gets buck wild. And I was like, oh, something's about to happen. And it got real crazy. Everything just kind of dropped. It was like, oh snap! Like, we lost a hero. All the flag smashers were freaked out. Like, oh dang, she killed that guy. Let's leave. So everybody just leaves, and then he jumps out the window. Cool, admittedly kind of cool. He bursts through. They give him the classic hero pose and everything. And he sees that one guy, and he is after him. He is on him. The guy tries to pick up, a little pillar or whatever, and he throws it, and he just deflects it, blows the whole thing up. He's yelling, where is she? That's when you know you're screwed. Like, he's in that Batman moment, but clearly he's a little angrier. And then he throws the shield. He hits him in the back, knocks him down. Town square. It's like, oh, it's just out in the open. Like, oh, man. IG Live. New Captain America, John Walker, like, oh, he's about to catch one of the bad guys. And he's scared, like, man, new Captain America's a little angry right now. What's he doing with that shield? And then he just puts it up in the air. Great callback to Civil War, where obviously the original Cap, Steve Rogers, did it, but he just slammed it down on Tony's arc reactor, and it shut down the armor. It was like, okay, this fight is over. That doesn't happen here. He bashes this dude's head in. I don't know if he cut this guy's head off or what, because there was a lot of blood, and I'm like, I don't know if that, I mean, either way, he had to have dug into his body. Like, he was only hitting him like this, so some part of him got cut open or cut off, because he was hitting him pretty hard and blood came out. And I was like, if some blood came out, he was piercing skin for sure. So I don't know if I don't think they'll go that far where it's like he straight up decapitated the guy. But if he did, and they showed that, or they won't show it, but they mentioned they'll probably be like, you nearly decapitated, something. They'll try to make it as drastic as they can without saying, like, he chopped his effing head off. They'll try to, they'll try to do it. But either way, he murdered that guy, and everyone's just around. Phones all on him. Sam and Bucky come around and it's just like, oh dang. And then he was cool too. He was just like, whew, killed that guy. And you see him like strapping up the thing like nothing's happening. And it was just like, put my stuff back on. And then he's just looking around and they show him he's got the shield and it's just blood on the bottom. And then it cuts. And so we have 2 more episodes. And it's crazy. Amazing ending. It was definitely the best ending. Who knows where Zemo is? Who knows what the F is going on with Sharon? I think she's going to try to take over for the Power Broker. I think that might be what's happening. I certainly don't think she is the Power Broker. She's obviously got that connection. She thinks that they're a problem. Something's going on there, obviously. But I think she's working for the Power Broker. And then, I don't know. It's hard to say. I mean, there's only 2 episodes. So they could technically introduce a new person. And then they don't actually end up being that relevant. They're just more of a plot device to be like, this is the Power Broker. And then somehow they die. And then Sharon's like, now I'm the Power Broker. So they could do that. And I'd be like, yeah, that's fine. Because it's not like, they say the Power Broker is this big thing. But it's more important to be like, now Sharon's the Power Broker. So it doesn't matter. They could have any random person become the Power Broker. And then just kill them off. Like we have almost an hour and a half. The episodes could even end up being longer. That they could do the next 2 could actually be closer to an hour. But just keeping it at, even if we're going 40 minutes flat, almost an hour and a half worth of content left, they can still do a lot. They could easily introduce one random dude and be like, here's the Power Broker. Boom, he's dead. Sharon's the Power Broker. And they, that's something for a big thing later on in the, in the universe. But it's crazy. I'm so excited for what's going to happen next. I don't know if they're going to start off where this episode ends. I think that's going to be the most interesting thing. Like, are they just going to pick right up from that scene and it's like what happens in that exact moment, which I feel like they have to. That's what they did last time, where it's like, oh, it ends on this conversation. There's no way they can cut and just be like, oh, it's like that was like 12 hours ago. Like, they have to do it in that moment. Like, how does he walk away? What do people who's going to say anything to Captain America? Like, clearly he just murdered this guy. You're not saying anything. Like, everyone's just going to be like, oh, that's crazy, but I'm going to leave. I'm not going to talk to him. What are Sam and Bucky going to do? Like, is he going to fight them and then try to take off? Like, there's so many questions as to how that moment is going to, kind of play out. Like, how is he going to leave that situation and just be fine? Like, where's he really going to go? What are they going to do? Who are they going to bring in to kind of talk about the crazy thing that he just did that's blasted across the internet now, in real life and in the cinematic universe? So I'm excited. I'm very excited for these next 2 episodes. I hope that they're longer because there's just so many things that I want to see. They might answer all of them. I just feel like I don't see how they could answer everything. They did it in WandaVision. They can easily do it here with the episodes being, 40 minutes themselves. And this episode, I think, is great proof of that. Like, it just seemed like so many things happened. And it felt like a long episode, but it was the same length. It was just done in the best way. So, very excited for next week's episode. The next 2 for sure. But we'll love to know your thoughts. Obviously, what the F? I mean, with the end, how are you feeling with that ending? Even the music for the actual end credits, it was just like, they didn't like do the normal music. It was just like, no, we're going to do a more somber beat for this one because that was crazy, right? Why don't you sit with that for 7 days? So that's where we are. That's the life we live in. Would love to know your thoughts though, so please put your comments down in the comment section below. Let me know your favorite parts about it, your least favorite parts about it. Obviously, like I said, I want to know what you guys thought about the ending. What's going to happen next? Are we going to pick up right where we left off? And I would love to know your predictions on how that scene kind of concludes. Like, I would assume Carly's going to just end up taking off, but Sam and Bucky have to talk with John. And I assume that's probably where they end up getting the shield, because we know that Sam ends up getting it at some point. I don't think it's going to be in the final episode. Like, they might straight up fight him. They might actually try to fight him, and they could easily beat him because you have one super soldier, plus you have Sam Wilson, who clearly can fight other super soldiers. He's, as Bucky even says in this episode, like, he's dealt with worse. So they could straight up fight him right there and be like, dang, these 2 guys, Falcon and the Winter Soldier had to take down Captain America. So we might even end up having a cool action sequence right off the top, because he might be in crazy rage mode and they're like, we need to stop you right now. And then he might just be like, F that, and then he wants to fight them. That can literally be the start of the next episode. I have no idea, but I hope that happens now, because that would be super cool. But I would love to know your thoughts. So please put your comments down in the comment section below. And of course, thanks for watching.